Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the blindseyepodcast, the podcast discussing everything you did and didn't want to know about being blind. My name is Connor, and today we're going to be talking about Braille. So we're going to be talking about how Braille started, its links to Napoleon, the different kinds of Braille and how it gets used on a day-by-day basis by somebody who uses it a lot, and I guess all the differences and things to consider when you are using Braille or not using Braille. So I spoke to Emma, who I know, and you will hear me talking with her on the other side of the disclaimer. As usual, these are just my own thoughts and comments and whoever it is that I'm speaking with. And I think today that we kind of show that there's definitely some differences out there on this topic in particular. So enjoy.
Can you hear my dog chewing in the background? I'm really sorry. She's got her nylon bone and she's just going to town.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. I had to actually bring Lick in because because we don't have a doggy door. So, and when she goes to the back door, she just lets out one bark when she wants to come in. And I was like, I know that's going to happen. So,
Yeah, we haven't got a doggy door either, but
yeah,
I don't know. She was like, I'm coming too. And I was like, righto. She's like, and I'm bringing this. And I was like, if you must. And she's like, and I'm going to chew it. I was like, bloody hell.
Well, look, I'm recording now. So look, thank you very much for waking up. How is Melbourne actually going? Because are you still in Melbourne or are you back in Tasmania?
I'm still in Melbourne.
So, and is it like freezing down there?
I think it's all right. I haven't been outside today, except to take the dog out. But
I suppose you guys can't really do that, can you? Or can you?
not really. We can go for like an hour exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go, one person can go to the shops.
Yep.
But I've got a sighted person who can do that, so I don't really need to.
Yeah, you can kind of minimize your exposure.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, look, so I want to talk to you, Emma, about Braille. So I guess my first question is, when did you learn Braille?
So I think I started learning like when I was about 3, so probably the similar age to when most kids are learning print.
Yep.
Yeah, just like early childhood, same as most people learn to read and write kind of thing.
Yep. And so, because that was one of the things that so I never actually learned Braille. My vision went when I was 12. So I was basically told by the teacher at school that was helping me out to not even bother, digital is going to kill Braille, so don't even bother about it. And so I never did. And thankfully, I've never really been in a position where I needed to know it. But I guess the other big thing is the literacy side, because I already knew how literacy worked in commas and full stops and punctuation, where I guess if you're kind of blind from birth, then that's where it really comes in handy.
Yeah, that and things that have strange spelling, so because I'm studying law, there's a lot of Latin terms,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm doing German as well, so just getting the spelling of the German, and because the sentence structure is all different and there's so many rules and all that kind of stuff. Like Jaws can read German, but it butchers the hell out of it.
Yeah. Well, I know that because I learned a little bit of German at school, but yeah, it's or I've come across I used to do history at uni, and then there would be times where it would break into French or German in the manuscripts or something, and then it would just go haywire.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
but yeah, I guess that whole literacy side, I guess, is the real thing, because then at least you're able to build that understanding of how the language works. Because that was the other thing, while I was researching this, because I guess people think that Braille is a language, and I guess where it's more it's more like a code for the actual language. Would you?
Yeah, I definitely don't think it's a language. Like it's similar, I guess you could say it's similar to like people say that sign language is a whole different language,
Mm.
but it's still English. It's just a different way of putting it, I guess. Like a
Yeah,
different way of getting the message across.
yeah. It's just like a different,
Or
like
yeah.
yeah, like a reading or writing mechanism of the exact same language.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like so, because the thing that like always blows my mind, I guess, from the point of view of Braille, like isn't I know to some extent there's some uniformity with Braille like around the world, but it's also my understanding that like some countries have completely different ways of doing it.
Yeah, so generally UEB is used, so Unified English Braille. That's like um used in like over 100 countries.
Hmm.
Um, but basically every country still has their own. So Australia, the uniform code is UEB, but we do still have Australian Braille. It was phased out in I think 2007-ish, 2006, 2007. Um, but we still like it does actually exist, but no one knows about it really.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well,
same with other countries. They
yeah.
have
Well,
the
that's
same like yeah.
yeah. Well, that's kind of what I was reading. Like, if you happen to be blind in China, then Braille there has been adapted to work with your language. That's
Yeah, so
that's kind of
like
my understanding.
yeah, I think there's different. So I did some Japanese at high school, and I know there's like different, um, like symbols, I guess, like different combinations of
Hmm.
the cells and stuff for, languages that aren't the normal alphabet, like
Yeah.
A to Z kind of thing.
Yeah.
But
Sorry, you can really hear your dog going to town on that
I'm
phone.
really sorry.
It's fine. It's it adds flavor and character. Um,
I'm
but
really sorry.
no, don't be sorry. It's look. If my dog actually hates the mylar bones, so if she could, she'd be on it as well. So don't worry. um, but I guess so. Like from the Braille point of view, so there's. I always thought there was grade 1 and grade 2 and and now I've actually found out now there's apparently a grade 3. Um, but I guess would you be able to explain? I guess firstly we should explain because there'd be people I guess in like the sighted world who wouldn't know. They just think it's dots on a screen or dots on a piece of paper. So I guess my best way of understanding it is you have two columns of three dots on each column, which makes six, and then whichever different arrangement those dots are in those different positions means a letter or a number or a punctuation. Would that be?
Yeah, or a contraction in the case of grade two, or like a symbol for a certain, like a number sign to signify that the following is a number.
Yep. So grade 1, my understanding is grade 1 is like each thing is, this is A, B, C, D, whereas grade 2 is you don't necessarily have to spell out every single letter. Is that the case?
Yeah, so in some cases it's every single letter you have to spell out, like common things like Tion, Sion, En, just that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
And there's some as well where it's the whole word.
Okay.
So every letter in the alphabet except A, I, and O have that they stand for a whole word. So B by itself means but.
Okay. Oh, really? Oh,
And
so
it's the
it's like
same
shorthand.
pattern.
It's almost like shorthand, like like with text speak.
Yeah, and so it's the same with like so if you got your cell um and you've got, say for example, the all three on the right and the bottom two, like the middle and the bottom on the left,
Hmm.
that like just that by itself means with, like the whole word.
Also, even just that one like cell in that arrangement means that entire word.
Yeah,
Ah, because
so
my
grade two is quite handy.
yeah, well, I mean, like I've tried to start learning it, but I kind of made the stupid call of trying to learn it as I started my first job, and then I was going to do it like by correspondence, where I would learn when I got home, and that just didn't happen. So I was just like, by the time I get home at 6 o'clock at night, there was no way I was going to start learning Braille.
Yeah, that's fair.
And like, I think for me, because so I used to get kind of like shat on by, I guess, other people who have vision issues because they were like, oh my God, like, how can you not know Braille? But I suppose, well, as I said, for one, I was told not to bother about it, so I didn't. But then I've also kind of found myself never really in a position where I must know. So I don't know whether I've just been lucky or whether, we're just born at the right time where technology has other options,
I mean,
but
it's really common, like, to not, like, I know someone who never learnt it. He's recently started learning it, but he hasn't learned it. Like, he didn't learn it all at school. He was told the same thing, like, don't bother.
yeah.
But then I know someone, I think maybe 3 years ago, he was in a basically an accident and lost his vision, and the doctors were like, as a part of his rehab, no, don't bother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like, I don't know, because even, like, whether you were born before me or I guess around the same time as me, like, I guess it depends on, like, I guess who's giving you the information.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It's
and like
almost who
what
you
works for
meet.
you as well.
Yeah, it's almost who you meet, like, and I guess at what point. I mean, like, that was like, look, in hindsight, I kind of wish I knew it. Just, I mean, for me, really, the only time I ever come up against it is maybe with like some, like games. There's, with like game boards, how they're done in Braille, like, and
Monopoly and stuff.
yeah, like in that kind of situation, that would be handy. I mean, the only other one where I was like, damn, I really want to know is my mates used to play poker, and like one of them would have to tell me what cards I had. And I was like, if
Oh,
I,
that's annoying.
but I had Braille poker card, like I had Braille playing cards at home, but I had no idea what it was. So, that was really the only situation where it would have been like, well, I don't need to ask somebody what cards I have in a game where nobody
Yeah.
know my cards.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but like, because that was the other question that I had about, because often you see Braille out in the community, like, at my uni, there used to be ones where there might be Braille on the banister next to each toilet, like telling you male or female. But I was always like, well, how the hell do you know it's there? Like, how do you know where to find it? Unless, I guess, you've done O&M to know that it's there.
Yeah, I think, like, so toilets are expected, like, it's always supposed to be somewhere, like, whether it's next to the door, on the door, that's basically where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
It could be on either side or on the door, and it's quite problematic when there isn't Braille on the door, because there was a time in my first semester last year, because I started mid-year, so everyone else knew where they were going, and I knew there were some toilets nearby because I could hear them, but there was no Braille on the doors, so I was too scared to go to the toilet in case I went to the wrong ones.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
had to hold like
Yep.
the whole afternoon.
We've all been there, like that. Because I think, like, because that's the thing, like, I mean, look, I suppose if for most places that we would go often, you would probably do some kind of, mobility training to kind of learn it or whatever. But, in situations like that, where it's like, if you just come across that and you didn't know where to look, I always thought, well, how would you actually, know where to find it? But I guess,
Yeah, there's like some, like, I know in Melbourne there's like a sign somewhere. I don't actually know where it is, but it's for open house, and I didn't even know it was there till someone pointed it out to me. But it has like the opening times and like all this stuff on it. And I was
okay.
like, okay, cool. Well, that's great to know that's there if I ever needed it. Cool.
Yeah, well, it's like, you might be able to tell me this. So, like on vending machines, like when they used to have buttons, did they have Braille?
No.
Because they used to have these like raised dots, and I was just convinced that it must be Braille, but not knowing Braille, I didn't know if what I was feeling was, you know, was anything. But like people used to say it to me, and like so I went to TAFE with this guy who was blind as well, and he used to just go to the vending machine in the morning and just put his money in and just hit buttons, and he'd just eat whatever came out. And I was like, hell no! Like
Jeez.
if I'm putting my money in, I want to know I'm getting, what I
What I
want.
bloody want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I'm the same.
but there
Jesus.
was, but it felt anyway, like maybe it was just how it was like ridged or something, the metal, but it felt to me like there was Braille, and everybody used to say, what does that say? And I was like, I can't imagine that's Braille, because like how many of the guys who refill those machines just put them back in a different place, you know? So
Yeah, I don't
like,
think it is.
well, I'd hope not, because, like one day C4 is a Twix and the next day you want a Twix and it's not there anymore, like,
Yeah, like I've
um,
I've only seen a vending machine a couple of times, and I've never seen Braille on it because I wanted to try using it, and it
yeah,
didn't go well.
yeah, well, I just can't. Yeah, like the amount of money I've lost over the years, especially at uni and TAFE, because we were just living out of vending machines, essentially being poor music students. Um, but so I guess, what would you say you use Braille most often for? I mean, obviously we're doing stuff on the computer, and you have Facebook and iPhone and stuff like that. But where would you say you mostly use Braille?
Definitely uni, I think. Like all my lecture notes are in uni. Oh, sorry, are in Braille, not in uni. Um, like everything. So I use a Braille sense. Um, so like all that is in Braille. I write everything up in Braille. I have like I emboss my German vocab in Braille. Um, I like edit like so I write my assignments on the computer, but for editing purposes, I read them on my Braille sense, or I connect my browser to my laptop and read it that way.
And so,
Um,
the Braille sense, it's been ages since I've seen them, but it's basically kind of like is it kind of the same as a refreshable display, where it just has like hundreds and hundreds of dots that can be arranged, and then it kind of just translates what's actually on the screen into Braille speak that you can feel on the
yes,
go.
sort of. So I have a Polaris Mini, so I've got 20 cells across,
Hmm.
um, which is smaller. I think the other one's 40, but I got a small one because I'm going to uni all the time.
Yeah.
Like they're both really light, but I don't know. I'm just got the small one because um but yeah, so basically it has like the keyboard, the Braille style keyboard, um and then below that is the refreshable display, and basically it runs off Android, so you can install apps and save things and have 10 different documents open and that kind of stuff, USBs and everything.
Oh, so you can interact with it. You don't just read with it. You can also like use it as a keyboard.
Yeah, so basically it's like a laptop. Like it has all the functionalities of a computer. Like I've got my emails and everything set up on there for uni.
Oh, awesome.
Um,
I always
yeah,
thought it
it's
was
it's
just a
great.
like a reading thing. I didn't realize you could actually like, so what you would press on the dots you want to enter, just like you would with a keyboard.
On the Braille style keyboard, yeah,
Ah, I
and then it
never knew
comes
that.
up below it like the refreshables.
Yep.
Um, yeah,
I
you can just get like refreshable ones, like the Focus 40. I have an Orbit reader, but that's excessively loud, and I'm too scared to use it during lectures in case people can hear it. It's so loud, like it's probably almost loud as my dog chewing.
what, it just clicks
It's
or something?
Yeah, like I don't know how to stop the cursor, but the cursor keeps clicking, and every time you change lines, it makes like this really elaborate, like intense change that changes basically every cell at a time, and
Oh,
it's awful. I don't even like. I didn't think it was going to be like that when I bought it, but hey, whatever.
yeah. Well, especially like you can, you don't necessarily want to stick out any more than you feel you already do. At least that was my experience. So the last thing you want is this, sometimes like,
Yes.
well, that was my experience, because I'm like, I'm already like, the ugly duckling in the uni. And so the last thing you want is even more attention coming your way when you
That's
try to
right.
just do everyday stuff.
especially as it's unexplained. Like no one's gonna know what the hell a terrible Braille display is doing in the background. Like they're not gonna pick that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like so, it's just gonna draw attention to what the hell are you doing, human?
Yeah, exactly. And especially, like if you're in a lecture or something with a couple of hundred people, and it's I mean, I suppose it's a bit easier now that you're at home, but still, I guess if you're doing stuff via computer and stuff at home, if you were to do that, you would still have to worry about the microphone picking things up and all this
Yeah,
kind of
and
stuff.
like in the lecture room, it's like in the actual theater, it's so much easier because you know what they're hearing, like you're hearing it.
Mm,
So of course the people next to you are hearing it. Like in my first lecture, one of my subjects in like the first semester this year, my dog was under my chair and like I had literally like half the theater turning around to look at me because she was snoring so loudly. It was so embarrassing. Like, oh, I was trying to take notes and be innocent and mind my own business, and everyone is just turning in their chairs to look at me.
yeah,
It was so embarrassing, and half of them didn't even know that there was a dog under my chair because I was in the
yeah.
back.
That's the thing as well, because sometimes people don't know, and they're like, "Oh my god, there's a dog there!" Like, and then you're like, "Oh," because I. It's funny because I only got licorice a couple of years ago, so I was already out of uni. But I look back and I kind of wish I had had it in uni, just for the fact it would have been a great way to meet people and meet girls and stuff like that. But also just for that, hilarity sometimes.
It's so convenient. Like last year, we were sitting on the ground sometimes, and I had like a toy for her because she'd get quite bored in 2 hour lectures and stuff.
Mm,
And she became so popular. Like we'd be sitting on the grass, and she'd be having a chew, and everyone would come up and give her a pat, like she was off harness and stuff.
yeah.
And I would give her a pat, and she was like the celebrity.
Well, especially like when you're in class or like you're doing stuff. Yeah, you want to be there, but it does have its boring moments. So I guess a dog would kind of lively it up a little bit.
It really does, especially when they start doing their grumble.
Yeah,
The low grumble of "I'm
yeah,
so bored. Are we done?"
yeah,
And
yep.
then the lecture stops talking.
That's awesome. Um, well, actually, there was one thing I meant to say as well is and you may already know this, like on the whole Braille thing. So when I was doing some research last night, I found out that apparently the precursor to Braille was actually developed for Napoleon's army. So
Yeah,
did
there was
you
like
know
a
this?
12. Yeah, it was like, so I went to the Louis Braille Museum in France a couple of years ago. Well, I say a couple of years ago, like 4 years ago.
When we could
Um,
travel.
yeah, it was, yeah, back in the day. Um, and yeah, they had like a template of what they used, and there was like a 12 dot system, whereas I was a 6.
Yeah, well, because
And
yeah,
yeah,
because wasn't it something to do with night riding? Like, so the army could, like, I guess, give commands at nighttime in a way that I guess whoever they were fighting wouldn't know or something. Was that supposed to be
it
what it was?
was. Yeah, so it was that, so they could read it in the dark, but also so if the message fell into enemy hands, they couldn't understand it.
Ah, so it was almost like a code as well.
Yeah, it was both, so they can read it day and night, um, and because it was an easy thing to do, and so then it was also a secret code as well.
Well, I guess then that makes sense then why like Louis Braille, who actually came up with it, also happened to be French. Because from what I read, it was that basically it was too hard to read quickly because it was 12 dots. You had to try and work out. And then he happened to meet somebody who, was trying to find another use for it. And then apparently he kind of realized what you could do with it. That's my understanding of how it went down. Is that what the museum
I
seemed to say?
think, yeah, I think so. I mean, because they had one of the 12 dot, um, what do they call them, prototypes there, and it was really confusing. Like, and they had one of Louis Braille's Spanish books as well. Like, so
Hmm.
you know how they had them when they were raised print and slightly larger.
Hmm.
That was insanely big. Like, not even just thickness. Like, the page was probably So the average print page is what, like 30 by 20 or something?
Hmm.
I don't know. Whereas this was like almost A3 for one
Oh,
page for
okay, yeah,
print.
yep, yep.
So like between that and the 12 dot being
There was a lot
confusing, because
going
I
on.
think it was 3 across and 4 down from memory.
Like it's just an awesome. I don't know. I'm weird for like trivia facts that won't help me when society collapses. But I just love the idea that the precursor for Braille came from Napoleon in a kind of abstract way to fight a war. Like it's just when I read it last night, I'd never heard it before, and when I read it, I was like, that is really kick ass. Like
It is actually quite cool.
like because you just don't you know, well to me Braille seems like it's such a different thing that doesn't connect, I guess, to the wider world. It connects only in the blind world. So it's weird for it to, in my mind, to have this connection to something as, big and influential as Napoleon and all that. So I don't know. I just find it really neat that that's a little, fact of life.
'Cause I think it was used on the railroads, wasn't it?
It was what? Sorry.
Wasn't it used in the railroads or something? Like on the railway?
Oh, I didn't read that.
They, I think that I could be wrong. I haven't done any of this stuff for the last 4 years since I was first told, but I'm pretty sure like they passed it along the railway, and that's why it could have easily fallen into enemy hands, but they wouldn't understand it if it had, which was why it had to be so, I guess, obscure.
Yep. Yeah, well, I guess that would make sense because I suppose, yeah, because there would have been like railways just starting around that kind of early 1800s. So yeah, but I guess, you need to know you need to know and you need your enemy not to know. But it's just, I don't know, I'm a big history nut for war and stuff. So I just find that a really weird collision of the blind world and that, you know?
It's a bit cool.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so look, I think we'll leave it there. I really appreciate you speaking with me today. As I said to you already, that yeah, I just because I don't really know much about Braille, I kind of don't like to put it out into the ether as though I do and get it wrong. So it was just cool to actually get somebody's perspective on it. So I really appreciate that.
That's fine. Anytime.
So that was my chat with Emma. I again really appreciate her coming on, and I thought she did a really good job of explaining how Braille all works, and I thought that was a good chat. I definitely learned some things that I didn't know. As usual, you can get in touch with me via email. So blindseyepodcast@gmail.com. That's BLINDSEYE podcast@gmail.com. You can tweet me at blindseyepod, and you can find the Facebook page if you just search for Blindseye Podcast. And I will speak to you next week. Cheers.